better job of sort of streamlining the money and the efforts to get those assets addressed without knowing every grant program out there, any thoughts on that?
I have a few thoughts. I have a couple thoughts on that. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Eileen. I mean, the whole capacity issue of communities is really, really tough one. I think, and certainly we see that some communities are really good at going after grants and get a lot of funding, and others are not. The Cape, I mean, from my perspective, we get more applications from the Cape than any other part of our region. I mean, generally speaking, you guys are really good at, I think there's a very high awareness of water quality issues here and environmental issues here. And I think the municipalities are really good, and there's really good nonprofits. But I guess what I would say is, certainly, and this has been true on the Cape and elsewhere, that where nonprofits partner with municipalities, it can sort of add capacity. Association to Preserve Cape Cod has worked closely with Barnstable and Falmouth, and we've funded a number of projects where they're working with communities and essentially providing the staff. Having said that, you still need folks at the municipality, obviously. I mean, there still need to be town staff who can, go in front of the selectmen and there's a certain amount of inherent capacity that's needed, but that can certainly expand, the capacity of the communities. And I would like to see a lot more of that, both on the Cape and elsewhere in our region. Any of you guys address that?
Yeah, I think you just addressed the big mammoth in the room. So you're absolutely right and spot on. I think there is a lot that is overlapping for the grant programs, but there are certain things that one grant program does and the other doesn't. So it would be great if we can come up with a more coordinated outreach, if possible. Specifically, I was just thinking about this room and so much we learned about this, and the nitrogen sensitive area projects are a specific type of projects, and hearing from each grant program, it felt like even different BMPs can be funded by different grant programs, so I just felt that maybe we could do more, like maybe a roundtable, that we can have a conversation about, how we can understand what's the need and then fit the scope. Basically, understand the big puzzle and see what fits to what. So.
That's definitely how the state can be doing better. Is it still being recorded? The state should have a one-stop application for all climate-related grant programs where you can apply to one grant. Here's my project, here's my budget, and then we sort it to what grant program goes the best. MVP grant application is super complicated, and it's a heavy lift, and dams and seawalls is totally different, and 319 is different, and DER is different. But we need one application for these climate-related projects, or, even these can be combined, and then we talk. Even us in CZM are like, maybe this grant is better for you. They're not, they can be one application, and I hope. So if you are in any focus groups, or you get in touch with anyone from the state, just advocating for that from the grant writers would be really helpful. The more they hear that it's a need, the more they're likely to start implementing something. But there is some rumblings of that happening.
I'd add that I'm pretty new to this role in the state, and I found so far that our grant managers do a really good job of learning and continuing to learn about the other programs within the state. Sometimes there's not so much talking going on, and sometimes there is between programs. And so, I think if you have a project idea, just, everyone's willing to meet, and that means you have the time to do that too, which might be another challenge. But coming and chatting with those grant managers, and they can help advise you. And if it's not our grant program, then it's another grant program, and they might be able to direct you to the next person, which might be helpful or not. So.
And I just would like to address your comment about capacity. So in the Watershed Planning Program, we developed the Regional Coordinator Program, which Padmini mentioned during her presentation. And through the 319 grant program, we fund regional coordinators through the regional planning agencies, and they act as the capacity builders, I guess, for the towns in their regions. So for those small towns, that just don't have the staff, don't have the technical skills to be putting together grant applications, and especially, Courtney said that her proposals are difficult to write, and the 319 can be very difficult to write as well. So they provide that technical capacity for the small towns that lack it to kind of try to fill that gap.
I just wanted to add one thing, that it might be difficult to just join all the grants together. I don't think federal and state grants have very different requirements, and it's not going to, no matter how much we like it, it's not going to happen. I would like to, based on my experience, maybe I'm being too pessimistic about it. But I think that just to start with, I understand that writing so many grants and not getting funded, that might be one of the reasons for the fatigue. But before learning, I think if you could talk to the grant program that you are thinking that you might develop a proposal, and then that one meeting could really be helpful in understanding whether it's worth it to give that effort or not, And I believe all of us have lots of outreach. Other than that cone of silence when the RFP is out, I think we are eager to meet with you to talk about specific proposal ideas, basically.
Thanks for that great question. Do we have any other questions? Yeah.
I work for a local municipality. We're all short-staffed, so we don't have a lot of capacity. I wonder if you guys have considered, can't do a joint application like that. Could we do like some grants do where they ask you for just a letter of interest, where you put a paragraph or two really describe your project, you share it among yourselves and say, this is best suited as a 319 or something or whatever. That might help us. Wasting a lot of time writing a grant application that isn't funded kind of sours you on applying again next year. I just don't have a lot of capacity to do more than one grant.
Yeah, we do that. So we do an EOI, and we have feedback calls with every applicant, and then we also share the EOI across the state. But I haven't thought about sharing it with SNP or other state agencies or other non-state agencies. So yeah, that's a great idea. So rather than just keeping it internal, I could forward those grant ideas out and then discuss the feedback with you. What town are you from?
I'm from
Brewster.
We've applied to everybody up there. I think we got every grant except for, I don't think we ever got a MVP grant. We applied a couple times. Hopefully with MVP 2.0, we're going to refine our priority list a little better and succeed.
Yeah, let's work on that.
I think it's a great idea. I think although actual grant process cannot be coordinated like that, but maybe we can talk with each other and see if there could be a first step can be coordinated that way, And also I think a lot of time what happens is that the multiple grants are at the same time, so it's really difficult to choose which one I go for this round, which one would give me the. So if we can possibly come up with a first step together, that might streamline the process. So I feel that's a great idea.
Thank you. I mean, we do have a letter of interest process, and we've tried really hard to make it as simple as possible. I mean, I recognize that the work on these things is not, I mean, certainly with I can't speak for any of the other programs, but with ours, you can literally, if you know what your project is, you could easily write the application in less than an hour. The work is in developing the project, right? Is in going out and talking to the partners and all that. And I mean, I always tell people I wrote a lot of grants in my life before I had this job, and some of them I got and some of them I didn't. And you know, I always tell people that in writing a grant, that process that you go through in developing the project is useful, even if you don't get that particular grant, because you carry that into your next application, you know, and hopefully you'll have a better next application. I mean, that may be cold comfort if you don't get the grant, but you know, we have, like I said, we have about $3 million a year roughly. And this year we received, you know, $12 million in letters of intent. You know, if I had twice as much money, I could easily award, you know, $6 million in good projects without a doubt. It's just, unfortunately, you know, just the limitations of the funding.
Any other questions? I have a question. What makes a strong proposal for your grant?
I think we all can take around
that one. For us, well, one thing is partnerships are really important. I mean, for those of you with municipalities, you know, we often get proposals from municipalities that are basically, you know, passed through to a consulting firm. We do fund some of those if it's a really good project, but by and large, we're looking for something more than that. We're looking for, in the case of Pleasant Bay, where municipalities are working together, or strong partnerships with nonprofits or neighborhood groups. And we're looking for multiple benefits, you know, in terms, again, like I said, it may be a stormwater project, but we don't want to fund just a BMP that just, you know, has highly localized impacts, but rather one that, you know, may have, you know, be helping to restore a water body downstream, or, you know, may have community benefits. And then we also look for capacity building, because we can't fund, you know, every project, you know, every good idea in the region, unfortunately. But what we're hoping to do is elevate the practice of whether it's stormwater, habitat restoration, water quality restoration, whatever it happens to be. We're looking for projects that ideally, you know, are innovative, but beyond that, share that information with other communities within the region and even beyond the region, so that, you know, we can all, you know, up our game in terms of trying to address these problems, whether it's water quality or any of the other environmental problems in the region.
So from our end, you know, overall goal is the load reduction for the non-point source impairment. And so technically speaking, the most load reduction projects would get more competitive advantage. And that also, so that means like more collaborative projects with a higher overall outcome is always great. Another key area is active and inclusive community engagement. So this is a really central selection criteria in our grants right now. And what we really mean by that is going beyond unidirectional informational sharing and make it truly inclusive. And there are those inclusive practices. It's really easy to talk about them. It is very hard to implement. And understanding that we are, that can be, those actions needs to be supported by funds, you know. So we would really like to see a proposal that talks about, okay, I am going to put this action, which is basically an equity modifier that will bring someone from my community who would otherwise not be possible for them to come to the table and participate. So those kind of like action-oriented proposal would definitely have much more competitive advantage based on our selection criteria right now. So that is, and also this is another area that environmental justice is not just limited to the communities with the environmental justice populations. Environmental justice can be incorporated in any proposals to make it more inclusive. So we try to set that up, and also will be both. Another thing is that for a 604B project, a planning project would like to see that what's the implementation potential. So in the planning project, the best goal of a planning project would be make it shovel ready so that the implementation can happen right away. So I think that those kind of proposals would be more competitive from our end.
Yeah, I think I want to back up a little bit. When you're preparing your proposal, don't assume that we know everything about your project or your area or whatever your water quality concern is. Make sure when you're preparing your proposal, you provide all that background information, because we have a wide variety of reviewers when we're reviewing proposals that have been submitted to us, and they may not know anything about your area or your project or the condition of your water. So please provide all those details so that we can get a really full and complete picture of what your problem is, the problem that you're trying to treat, and what your outcomes will be.
That was a good addition, Judy, and applies to our grant as well. We have reviewers from across different agencies. So, putting that problem, really defining it and putting it into perspective is helpful. I think other than the super logistics that are listed in the RFR when it comes out, we do have program priorities that shift each year or could shift each year, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now, but those are listed in the RFR as well. So any projects that are including those would get some bonus points in our evaluation process. Additionally, I think generally to create a competitive application, I've seen those come to be because of many conversations way ahead of the application process in that project development phase. So again, just reiterating if you can have conversations with the grant managers early on, as soon as you have a thought maybe of a project, and we can help you frame it and make it competitive overall.
So for MVP, we fund such a wide range of projects. We funded anti-racism training for municipal government. We funded a study that the climate migrants from Hurricane Maria improved the economy in Holyoke. We funded stormwater. So we fund so much. So one of the best things is to meet with your regional coordinator beforehand and think, okay, this is what I'm thinking. How does this project fit with your program? Secondly, follow the format of the application. So we score projects. I wish I could just pick my favorite ones, but just follow the RFR and answer all of the questions to a T, because we score them and we line them up, who scores the best. And then I just want to pump MVP 2.0. So all these grant programs are saying we want an equitable project and we want an inclusive project. And we want more than just information sharing. We want an iterative approach to engagement. And that's what we require in MVP, but it is so hard to do. And a lot of us don't have the vocabulary or tools to be able to do this. So MVP 2.0, our new planning process, the end result is not a document. We are paying people from communities that have been typically left out of the planning process, EJ communities, priority populations. We're paying them around the lines of $40 an hour to be involved in the planning process. And we are providing training on equity and climate resilience to broaden the amount of people who are involved. So going through this process, we're just giving tools to make relationships, because a lot of successful grants have partnerships between nonprofits, between community businesses. Well, like, when do those relationships start? So going through MVP 2.0, we're going to give you the time and folks the money to just start the conversation and building relationships within your community. So that is, it's incentive to go through the planning process, and it will help for action grants and other grants all across the board. You hear every grant program here mention an equitable and inclusive process. So that is something that we really emphasize in MVP, because to be climate resilient, you need a social environment that's built with trust. So how you're bolstering that in your nature solutions and your built environment is going to be really important to us. But meet with your regional coordinator. They'll be able to help you out.
Thank you. All right, we have time for one more question. Okay. Panelists, is there anything you want to leave us with? Any final words?
Thank you for taking the time to apply to our grant program and meeting with us and taking the time to write the applications. I really appreciate the time you put into this.
I think today was really an eye-opening session for definitely for me, because I mean, you know, this nitrogen sensitive area projects were not part of our grant program, so we are really at the learning phase. And today I really understood the need, and we forgot to mention one thing. Actually, 319 grant programs and 604B both. The timeline is a little bit longer than other grants, I believe. It could be 2 to 4 years. So if there is a project that's a more long-term project, that might be, these projects could be beneficial for those type of projects as well.
Yeah, I just like to echo what Courtney said and just thank everybody for both for coming here and listening to us, and also for, looking at our programs, and certainly we try to keep an open mind to, all kinds of proposals that come across our program. So check out our website and see if it might be a good fit with what you're doing.